Etienne, real pleasure to have you on. I'm really happy that JS connected us. There's a bunch of different areas I want to talk to you about. Like, I want to talk about entrepreneurship. I want to talk about obviously WeCook. But first, I want to start up with the consumer and the customer and your core customer. We obviously, with the advent of e-commerce, we've seen a lot of habits change. And then one of these habits is nutrition, how people eat, right? So I'd be curious to hear from you as CEO of a meal kit company. How have you seen consumer habits change in this space?
Yeah, I mean, look, for us, I mean, first it's more like, yeah, we're in the same space as the meal kit, but our product is already cooked, so it's really like the ready to eat market. I mean, for us, we launched a business almost 10 years ago, so we've been around the block, as we say, and for sure, along those years, few things have changed within the industry. That's for sure. When we started the business 10 years ago, there was no food delivery at home and things like this. So, I when we started, it's say like the market for food delivery was mostly only healthy food, because people were looking for a specific product at that time because there were so few deliveries 10 years ago of food. So when people were looking to order some food, that has to be something specific in a way, right? So it's kind of started that way because our meals are mostly healthy for the most part. It's part of the concept. And what we saw along the way, let's say there's been kind of a shift when the meal kits entered the market in 2015, 2016. Where like, you know, it's say like most of the consumers were looking for any type of food delivery at their home. There's been the Uber Eats of this world and all the meal kits and the prepayment things like that. So I'd say along the way, people now kind of look for I think general overall healthy food, but they're not necessarily looking for anything kind of a specific, but just to eat better. Having something ready delivered to their home. So we're still kind of at the beginning of this, but it's said that now in 2022, the market it's kind of now normal to get some food delivered to your home. So it's said that what I saw in the evolution of the market is mostly like it started with something specific, and now people are now they're just looking for their everyday food but delivered to their home. So for the most part, if you look at the Canadian market, usually the market is looking for something that tastes good, that it's kind of healthy, but not necessarily like most people are not bodybuilders, right? So they're looking for something healthy, but just something good, tastes good, healthy, delivered to their home. It's said that this is most of the market right now.
Yeah, it feels like listening to you speak. It feels like the internet has allowed for two things, right? Convenience and choice. So like people be able to like have what they want at home, right? Like so being able to have this notion of convenience and choice. And so maybe take us back. You mentioned you've been building this business for 10 years now, and the original name was Nutrition Fit Plus, from what I understand. So what was the original business, and then how did it slowly transform into WeCook?
Yeah. So actually, the first name was Les Aliments V Plus. Okay. So it started with the meat distribution company. So before doing any, food preparation, I had a small meat distribution business. We were delivering frozen meat in different gyms and had people and also home delivery, right? So that was kind of the concept. And most of our meat were natural or organic. So again, it was like 12 years ago. So I started with this. So there was a market for this. At this time, there were especially people who train were looking for specific types of meat at this time. So salmon, bison, not only like ground meat. So it was like they had some specific needs. And at this time, there were like no companies that were really delivering, anywhere. So what I started to do is that I made some contacts with different gyms, and I started with them being drop point. So I was like dropping meat for different customers directly to their gym, or I were delivering home. So I kind of started with that type of these types of clients at this time. So it was like 12 years ago. And along the way, it started kind of with jokes where people were like, "Look, can you cook the meat for me? Can you deliver me your not frozen? It take the frozen meat, but can you cook it for me?" So starting like kind of a joke. And I think like any entrepreneur, you don't know exactly where the idea come from, but you started thinking by yourself around a new business model with this. And at the same time, my current partner was he was in Australia, and he was a day trader at the time. He was also he's an ex online poker player, so he was traveling the world a lot, and with his job, it was okay. You can trade anywhere in the world. So and he was in Australia at the time, and we were talking together. And what he was telling me is that ready to eat was already getting big in Australia like 11, 12 years ago. So it's kind of, we started talking together and said, look, I think we're going to bet that the market is going to be there in Canada in a few years. Obviously, we're early, but we're not that early, right? And I think for any entrepreneur, the goal is not to be, too early. If it's too early, you're gonna spend way too much in marketing because you have to change the habit of the consumer. But we're just early enough, And so we had the idea to do some prepare meal, and that's how it started. In 2013, we started doing prepare meal. Obviously, this a lot of things happened until 2013 and today. But this is how the idea came. Just talking together, talking with clients, having feedback. There was a need. At the end of the day, there was a need, and there was no one doing this. So and also, I think my type of entrepreneur, I try to launch business where yes, there's competition, but not big competition. So this is a kind of my way also to do business. So.
Yeah, it's funny hearing you speak because there's a few things that popped to mind. One is just when you spoke about like meat. We were talking about before recording how we're both kind of like fitness geeks, and back then I guess it was 4 Hour Body and also Charles Poliquin. Like the strength amount. You started talking about like things like bison, etc. I remember it from that time. So it's funny how that like I never thought of it as like people actually buying much more of that kind of meat. And then also one of my close friends is Marie-Ève Provost that I've had on the podcast that, started Miss Fresh, and she was living in Australia at that time. And she came back, she saw the same trend that the partner saw and came back and started Miss Fresh. I don't know if you know her or you know her story,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I know her and her brother. Yeah.
it's funny how you saw a trend happening in the market and then came here and had an idea at a similar time. But obviously, the rest of the story with Miss Fresh, difficult business. They sold to Metro and then it subsequently sold to another company. So it is a tough business. So you said it's you like to start business where there's like the quote unquote blue ocean, but now it seems like you're still thriving. You guys raised like 40 million early in the year, but it's a difficult, tight margin business. So I'd like to understand maybe what's the secret sauce. So how have you built your business model to be able to thrive in a very tight margin industry?
Yeah, so when we launched again 10 years ago, I remember when we launched, me and my partner were like, look, because our background is mostly like sales, marketing. I think we're true hustler. We're natural born entrepreneurs, so we're more like we're not finance guys at core. We're not even tech guy from the beginning. We're just guys who love to make money. So that's why. So when we launched, we were like, look, let's obviously we have to learn how to do the product, and let's be focused on production for a few months. And after a few months, we're going to hire a production director. We're going to hire different employees, and they're going to do the preparation, and we're going to focus more on sales, tech and everything. But what happened is that what we realized pretty fast is that, I mean, for us, which I think is the main difference with the meal kits, is that doing prepare meal at this time was close to impossible because there was no one that were doing prepare meal the way that we wanted. Which I mean that there was never been a business who put duck in a prepare meal, put asparagus, put bok choy, these types of ingredients in a prepare meal. So we had to we realized pretty fast that we would have to do years in production before scaling the business. So it was kind of a first thing that we did realize together, and so we're like, look, let's find out exactly how to do this. And the day that we know exactly how to do this, because we were realizing that it was difficult, so we knew that it's going to take a hard time to learn how to do this product and change menu every week, because we change menu every week. That's another challenge. But we were like, the day that we know what we're doing exactly, it's going to be close to impossible for competition to get to us. And if they get to us, they're going to get to us at the time where it's kind of almost too late, because in 2013 that was the time for test. But in 2020, 2021, 2022, you don't have the luxury to send a bad product to a customer for a few years, right? So it's kind of how like we learn how to do our we did the homework, and in 2000 and at the end of 2018 we were ready to start scaling the business. And it was at this time that we raised our first round, and we really starting growing very fast. But we realized that we needed to learn the product, and the founders were involved in production for 5 to 6 years, 7 days a week. So the secret recipes is to rabbit hole so many subject, so many. And I think the founders were pretty obsessed by nature, so we really like went deep into so many different things. And that was why we were succeed at growing the business fast. And I do think that for everyone who have tried so far, everyone fell, because we know it's so difficult. And the business that fell in this, it's not because they're necessarily bad, but they're not ready to go where you need to go to succeed in that market.
It's a good way. It's a way to put it, right? You have to. It sounds like it's a type of business where you just have to master all the details, right? Kind of like retail, where you just really need to be on top of it. But ultimately, it comes down to the customer, right? And them buying the product. What was, I want to say, the key to acquiring customers? Was it word of mouth? Was it good marketing and building the brand? But obviously, imagine you have a strong repeat, a strong LTV. So, what was it in the sense of, like, on the customer front that was a key for them to come back?
Yeah. So there's like two phases, because there's really two phases in the company. Like the first phase is 2013, 2019. At this point, it was only organic growth. So almost like the first few millions of sales in the business that were created organically. So it was only word to mouth, because we were not looking to grow necessarily faster than this. The business was profitable pretty early. So we have close to zero marketing spend during the first 5 or 6 years, and we still managed to do a few millions in sales. And and life was great in a way, right? We're learning and doing money at the same time, so it's kind of a good thing that we had the luxury. But obviously, if you want to grow fast, we obviously have to change this mentality. You cannot grow fast organically, or I mean, if someone has the recipes, to give it to me. But I mean, what we decided to do when we started to go to scale fast is that first we knew we had a good product. Okay, and again, I don't want to do any bad comparison with meal kits, because I have a lot of respect for everyone in this industry. It's a very tough industry, and a lot of respect for all the founders of this company. But I think what has helped us from the get-go is that people understand the product, right? So it's like it's ready to eat. It's good for your health. It's ready in 2 minutes. You can personalize your meals. Like, why would you say no, right? It's like it's so easy to understand, and this will end up ending your marketing, right? So as there is here it is to explain, there's here it is to create campaigns, right? So we started to make sure that we had a good product from the get-go, easy to understand. But for sure, one thing that we did understand fast is that the online game, if I might say, digital marketing, and all the tech game, is again a game of details. It's a very games of details that you need to be a master at so many things. And this is what we did. We hired GS, which already. So I'd say, like, when we hired GS, it was in 2019. That was like a key hire for us, because it's kind of opened the door to having with the founders like a first employee who were really looking to go deep into everything and to build like a dream team. And So it started with GS and the founders, and we kind of built the playbook. We also had an outside advisor who had already killed the game of Facebook ads in his previous life, and it was good also with Google ads. And he was kind of so an advisor. He was also a good friend of GS and a good friend of mine. So we kind of built along the way like a good team. And we basically did what we did. We first we make sure that our campaign was built the right way, which is not easy. In digital marketing, like, you get all the agency that are going to tell you this and that, but at the end of the day, you know, good is not enough. And if you want to win, you have to do great, because good, usually, if you do good, you're not making any money in the long term. So great is the only option. And we realized that there was no agency that doing great, because there's no reason for them to do great. It's not in their business model. So we kind of build everything internally. So we made sure that first we're building a campaign the right way, and also in terms of the communication, the branding, which I it was a little bit more on my court, in a way that again we made sure that we rebranded the company with WeCook, so we changed from Nutrition Plus to WeCook, and we really obsess in every detail to kind of grow the baby, because like when you rebrand a business, it's kind of it's a kid, it's a baby, so it's like when you raise a child, you don't know anything, you have to micromanage everything because he's still a child, you cannot tell your kid, explain something too difficult, so you have to explain step by step. And so we made sure also that the brand, the communication, the color, everything was fitting. And we kind of said, look, if we have the right campaigns, the right branding, we know we have the right product, right? So we kind of all bring this together, and we build internally, like I said, the good digital marketing team, good analysts, good branding people, good techs, good people on the website, and the rest. This is how we overall build it.
Yeah, very cool history. So I love the focus of the digital marketing. My old let's say domain, but I feel that there's also part maybe I'd love to hear from you, Etienne, about the operations piece, like getting from I remember visiting like Marie-Ève's warehouse, and it's like just being impressed by the scale of like people packing, making sure that the food goes out the door. So I'd like to hear on the operational rigor side. So making sure that you mentioned product as a core focus, but then also making sure people get it on time, right? So how much did you guys have to learn, build mastery in this domain?
Yeah, a lot, and yeah, we did have to learn a lot because like company like ours, and same thing with Miss Fresh, what they had is like you kind of learn at the same time that the deliveries company are learning. So everybody's learning at the same time. So it's kind of the whole industry, and still as of today, the whole industry is learning at the same time. So that's kind of the one of the challenge. So what we made sure is that it's better for us. We decided to go sometime. It's better to go a little bit slowly in a way to make sure that the delivery is done the right way, right? So I think, and to make sure that everything function, it's at the end of the day, when the food enter the plant and when the time the food leave the plant, it's for most of the ingredient is like in 3 to 4 days. So it's pretty fast. So we had to make sure, so everything has to went to goes well, like the warehousing, so the reception of the product, after you get the QC who do the checkup, after it goes to the butcher and the veggies room, the kitchen, so they're like there's so many things that has to go right before the product is shipped out. So again, I for us, what we did, and I know it's not everybody work that way, is that we really make sure that we went deep into each and every department before letting it go. So for us, I think a key hire was our VP of operation in 2019. We had a great experience with all of these different departments. And he had the same vision of the founders. And we made sure that all of the department are built for our business model. Because, most of our employees were coming from other background, right? They were doing food transformation, but the product was made to be sold retail, for example. So it's a complete different mindset. You're working against the clock in our domain. So you have kind of build the playbook, like there's kind of a rush, and everyone has to understand that the clock has to go at the same time for everyone to make sure. So I think the key, there's so many detail in this. We could go 3 hours on this, but it's like to make sure. I think it's like to make sure that you build the right playbook for your industry, which not everybody do. They take so many advice from, hey, well, I was working before, we were doing this and that, and it's kind of where it's getting mixed up. You have to understand your product and understand the way your market works and keep it to that.
Okay, so one thing I want to dive into and what you just said is maybe understanding the opportunity that lies ahead, right? So I imagine that the pandemic was a boon to your business because everyone's stuck at home, everyone's kind of like fed up of cooking. So I'd like to hear how the pandemic transformed your business, and then maybe give us a sense of scale today. As we're talking, like almost Q4 2022, size, scope, employees, number of customers, any kind of public metrics you can share.
Yeah, I mean, look, first the pandemic for us, I think it was, it was not bad, not good in a way because people had more time to cook, so that was a bad thing for us. People had more time to cook, so this has definitely helped the meal kits. But at the same time, there was way less advertising online, right? So I think it was a good opportunity to scale the business because, like, if you were looking at Facebook ads, Google ads, all anything like this, there were not a lot of activity, right? So we took the opportunity also to scale the business at this time. So again, on one hand, people have more time to cook, but on the other hand, you kind of overflow the market in a way, so you end up having clients at the end of the day. So I think for us, it was neutral in that way. But it was definitely a challenge. I think it was internally, because we went from 50 employees to more than 500 in like 2 years and a half. So there's always there's really a no-brainer decision, right? So you're always like any fast startup, and I know like in tech, it's the same thing in tech. But the challenge with us is like we're a tech company, but we're also transform the product, right? So it's not a SaaS business where you just sit on the computer. So it's kind of the challenge, because like you have to make sure that you scale at the right time that your production is following, so it's like it's kind of running two business at the same time in a way. So obviously it was a challenge. You cannot you cannot go from 50 to 500 and all of the departments are built the right way, right? So you have to make some choice and you say, okay, this department, I'm going to build it really, really the right way. This one, maybe this is not the right way, but at the end of the day, we have to make a decision. So I think like overall, that was kind of the main challenge in a way. Um, and in terms, if we look at last year, we shipped more than 4 million meals in the year. So again, it was definitely not the case. Let's say 2 years ago. So it was we really really grow very very fast. Okay, so and again, though I do think that we brought a way to transform the product that was good for this type of volume, right? So that was kind of the challenge to make sure that the technique that we worked on were good enough for these types of volume. And obviously, there was tweaking along the way. But I do think again, like the experience that we gained from the years before, enable us to be ready for that type of scaling. But at the end of the day, there's so many challenges because you learn at the same time. Like I said, you cannot hire someone who has all the answer. It's not this type of industry. So that was kind of the challenge for us during the pandemic, and also obviously during the pandemic, people get sick. People, you never know how many people you're gonna get. There's shortage of labor, and there's so many challenges that we had to focus on. But we went through. But there's still, to be honest, in the current world situation, there's still a lot of challenge. So it's not an easy business. But I think in terms of pandemic, we got through it.
Yeah, I was gonna say better than most, man, and it's a great entrepreneurial story. And like a few points was like when you mentioned, this notion of advice is like that's why it's so hard to to build an innovative company. It's not there's meal kits have not been around for like 20 years or 50 years, and you have a bunch of like retired veterans that can help guide you. It's
Exactly.
like you're the one at the forefront of this thing, right? So it's like you're gonna have to
Exactly.
like pick and choose advice that works. So I find that's an interesting insight. It's like, yeah, sure, mentors, advisors are going to help, but it's going to be more general than like, how do I build X for this segment? Maybe talk about customers. Like, so wild stat, like the 4 million meals. I find that's an incredible statistic, and I imagine your core group of customers. Has expanded, right? So concentric circles, right? So we spoke a little bit about your early adopter segment. So I'd like to hear about how's this next wave of growth for you guys in terms of like the types of behavior, types of customers you're going after, like urban, suburban. Yeah, diving into the customer a little bit.
Yeah, again, let's start by, for us, to be honest, like it's such we're, we're kind of lucky to have a product that, reach so many people, because I know, like, it's a question that me I ask to a lot of entrepreneurs. So like, which is your, typical clients. But from the data that we have, and now, we obviously have enough sales to have some, clear data that means something. To be honest, it's very wide. It's very, very wide. Like anyone over 25 to like 60 years old, male, female, suburban, in the city, almost everywhere. At the end of the day, because we have a new menu each week, and each week we have different types of cuisine, different types of, so there's something for everyone. So that's kind of the way I was seeing this business model. I was like, look, again, and going back to what I said earlier, I'm not a guy who like to build business with a lot of competition and a lot of the product has to sell in its way. It has to sell itself to a lot of people, right? Because you're gonna have other problems. So for me, I was always looking for this, and now from what we're seeing, like you know, the challenge is get some visibility at a good price on Facebook, on Google, on Snapchats, on TikToks, like anybody else. If everyone's compete for this, but for us, the way we build our campaigns and everything, from what we're seeing, is it's pretty wide. It's pretty wide, and there's no, like I said, adults, male, female, it's almost 50-50. There's no, before, when Nutrition Fit Plus, we were targeting mostly people who train, obviously, but now with WeCook, it's like there's, it's say like half of my customer get the product because they want to eat good, and the other half they want to save time. But it's really 50-50 in a way, right? And obviously there's some it's both, it's like it's so it's so the way we target the clients, it's, we build a brand that, any adults that, you know anyone who have a, whatever the salaries, what we say, like, obviously it's kind of there's a bit of luxury product. I'm not saying that, anyone can buy this product, but at the end of the day, and I learned this from my previous life, and which was more in the fitness industry, is that it's not really the amount of money that someone's making, is like, what is his priorities, right? And if your priorities is eat good, it's being healthy, and have more time, for your family to do sports, everything, you have a good product. So it's so convenient, right? So even if you're not making any big salaries, it's an interesting product. So it's a general answer, but it's a general it is the answer, so
I was going to say, last time I met, I think everyone I've met eats food, so it's a good addressable market.
start from this, right? So that's a good thing about food industry. Everybody eats.
Yep, yep. No one skips that. Yeah, so you guys raised 40 million from Claridge, I think Investissement Québec and Desjardins Capital. What's the plan like to for the next wave of growth? Like, how big do you think the opportunities? I know we were talking about expansion before, so I'd like to hear about, let's say, the next 3-5 year vision for WeCook.
I mean, look, the end goal is pretty simple. We want to be the Canadian leader in our industry, right? So what I want is, like, let's say in 5 years, that, when you think about ready to eat, you think about WeCook. So that's the end goal. Is it going to be 500 million revenue, 600? I don't know. So, and but it's going to be in those range in a way, right? So for us, it's going to be it's to be the Canadian leader, to deliver at as much home as possible in the whole country, and to expand the business Canada wide. So obviously now we only have plants in Quebec. We have a plant in Saint Hyacinthe and one in Dorval. We're going to open up another one in 2023 in Calgary. Uh, After this, probably there's going to be one in Ontario, and after this, it's you kind of build it at the same time. So it's like you cannot project yourself way too ahead, but the goal is to have just enough plants in the country to deliver as much Canadian as possible, and be the industry leader in the industry in our market. And the goal also is to keep in prepare meal, right? So we're not looking to be a grocery. We're not looking to sell any soccer balls or any. It's like we sell prepare meal, right? So we do sell other product right now. We have a few add-ons, but the main goals is to be the brand of ready to eat. This is it's the key, the main thing, as a GSP famously said in an interview. Keep the main thing the main thing,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I love
it's
the
the main thing
focus.
is super meal.
Yeah, I love the focus, and yeah, the market's big enough to support it, right? As more and more people are comfortable shopping online, with buying food online, I think it's the right trend to bet on. Maybe to look at yourself more as a individual, personal story. I'd love to hear about lessons, key lessons you've had, in this entrepreneurial journey. Now, 10 years in, but like you said, if you're watching some of your videos before, you always saw yourself as an entrepreneur. So like, I'd like to hear a little bit of what you learned along the way.
Yeah, so many things, so many things. I think the first thing, the first thing I could tell to, because I do think it's two things, right? So I think there's kind of I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, but there's people who are like kind of born entrepreneur. And I do think that these kind of people do need to have a different playbook in their mind than someone who, for example, was, I don't know, in finance or any other industry, that he wake up one day and say, "Look, I'm an entrepreneur now, so let's start a business." So I think it's two different mindset. So when I give this answer, it's more like it's depending where you're starting. Are you starting more from, like, were you selling your PlayStation at 10 years old, or not, because I was. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's a this is the way I was thinking when I was young. So I think, like, if you start with that mindset, I think following your instinct is very important, very very important, because your instinct is not magic, right? There's a lot of science behind instinct. If you read about instincts, the subconscious mind is not magic, So I think if you're a natural born entrepreneur, the best tips I could give you is don't second guess yourself too much. And there's a reason why you thought of that thing the first time you think about it, right? So if we can start from there, like, if you have this and you're born with it. On the other hand, if you're more like, let's say, I don't know, you were an employee and you got good at one product and say, look, why not start a business, right? Why not start a business? I'm an employee, but I know this industry very well. I want to try this. It's safe for this type of entrepreneur. I think they should start with the data at core. Let's say you can, maybe a little bit less follow your instinct from the beginning, and make sure that maybe you build data driven business pretty early, because you don't have the luxury to maybe get the instinct. So I think, like, the thing I'd say, like, when I was younger, I was kind of doubting myself in a way. I started business and I was doubting myself. And one thing I realized is that, if I follow my instinct, and most of the time, if I stay focused and I keep looking around and getting information, having, recognizing patterns around me, so my instinct is going to be good, and listen to trust myself most of the time. So I think this is the biggest tips I can tell someone, because when you're younger, you doubt yourself. I cannot be right on this because this and that. So you second guess. You think about something three, four, five times, and you're lost. You say, what I was thinking the first time, right? So I'd say, like, it's the best tips that I could give to someone. Another thing also that it's a bit controversial, this, but and it's important to explain the right way. But adults don't change that much, and that would be that's something that I learned the hard way. This is something I kind of knew before, but it took me almost until I was 30 years old to really gather that concept. So what is the margin where people can change, and there's a maximum, right? So when you understand how the human can change at 20 years old, 25, 30, 35, because think about it, like, if I think about my dad, which I think is an intelligent guy, but there's no way my dad changed the way he thinks now. Like, no way at all. He's 60 years old. So, and before, I thought that, okay, like, people at 60 years old don't really change. But what I understood is that, no, like, when you get to 20 years old, your core as a human is kind of, it's hard to change those core. So usually I say, like, you cannot how do you say in English, like you cannot change someone, but you can change the people you're around with. So this is something that helped me a lot. And so yeah, there's so many things also, like you need to work hard. And it's for me, it's have been hard to have a good work life balance. For me, I don't think we cook would be we cook today if me and Jonathan, my partner, would have tried to have a good work life balance. I do think you need, and I'm not saying this for my employees. It's the complete different things for an employees. But I do think that for founders, you need people at the top that when they wake up in the morning, they think about the business. They're not thinking about anything else, because you don't have the luxury, because the game is so tough. The game is very, 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 very tough. So, and what I learned along the way is that most of the entrepreneurs don't think that way. They think about go out with the friends, and they got family, which is a good thing. They get family, they get kids, they go out and everything. So the 20 hours that they're putting ourselves, we were able to put it on the business, right? And I do think that I made a change. So you have to, at the end of the day, work a lot. But again, I just pinpoint, I think it's more for founders than any employees. You need work life balance at the end. You cannot go that way for 20 years. But if you scale a business, don't listen to people who tell you that yeah, you need to work, but you need to have to think. It's like you're selling something to your home mind. It's like you need to work. And I do think that if you eat good and you train at the same time, people don't realize how much, like, if you train, you eat good, you're gonna have more fuel, like way more fuel, and you'll be able to get through it. So yeah, I think there may be other things, but this is something that popped in my mind that,
Yeah, I
that
was gonna
really
say those last like five, your answer has been great, Etienne, because I think it's really full of great insights, right? It's like the ultimate one is, yeah, there's no shortcuts, man. You have to work hard. It's like there's no one's gonna do it for you, unfortunately, especially as a founder, right? You're the person that's leading it, that's building it. And you brought it up at the end, so I was planning on asking about, like for me, health, both mental and physical, is basically the same thing. So being able to think intelligently and then think about your business is also tied to physical health, which is why I tend to prioritize. Going back to priorities, right? So if you show me where people are spending their money, you'll see where their priorities are. So I spend things like fitness and stupid things like this. So how has fitness helped you? Maybe a more geeky question, like what are you doing right now to stay in shape, considering that you're running a 500 plus person company?
Yeah. So, training has always been an important part of my life, because when I was younger, I was playing hockey. So I'd say like hockey was very important for me until, let's say, like 17 years old. The day that I knew that I would not go pro or go above, I kind of switched my focus on different sports, different training. But I think first, like, for me, doing hockey at school has been the best teacher in life. So I encourage any parents to make sure that their kids learn a sports. And also, I try to implement martial arts as soon as possible. Uh, because it's give you a good discipline. And it give you good confidence also. So for me, it's say like training. I train. I started, reading about training a lot when I was 17 years old. Different diet, different way to train. Learning about hypertrophy. About the strength, and the low carbs diet, and the paleo diets, and all of those things. And it was and always been part of my life in a way to keep in touch with this. And so I always staying kind of in a good shape in a way. And I do think it has made a difference, with scaling the business, because it really make a big difference. Like it's kind of now in society, like we think like, okay, you eat good, you train, yeah, it's something almost funny. It's going to help you a little bit. No, that's major, right? So so that's why I always treat this major. It's like nowadays I was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu before the pandemic hits. for a few years. When the pandemic hits, it was kind of hard to do jiu-jitsu. So we started back recently, but for me, it has. I knew, like, for example, in jiu-jitsu, I know that the time to be, to become anything great in any sport that I do, with a jiu-jitsu or okay, whatever. But it's just to, be in good shape. Be in good shape, love what you train, be in good shape, and it's gonna make a difference in your work.
Yeah, I was gonna say I also practice jujitsu, and I don't have aspirations to be world champion. I don't think I'll get it, but yeah, we'll have to find some time to roll together. I think it's a good lesson. It's tied
Yes.
to a little bit about no shortcuts. I sucked at it for a long, long time. Not that I'm great now, but it also teaches you the hard way that like there's only one way to get better. You just have to spend more time. So I think that's a good lesson in life, and I like how you tie in. You said the work life balance, but also prioritizing some stuff that helps you with work, right? So blending it a little bit to a certain extent. Etienne, I could probably bug you for another hour or two, man. So maybe a final question: if people want to learn more, sign up for WeCook if they haven't yet. Which my wife actually signed up as a small use case. Is like it's not just for people that want to save time and eat good food. It's also for people helping others too. So maybe that's a segment. So my wife bought for her dad that she doesn't have time to cook. So it's a little bit of the saving time thing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think it's a possible segment. So yeah, sorry, I'm rambling. A final question, Etienne. People can reach out, connect, sign up for WeCook. What's the best way?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, to sign up to WeCook, I think we built a great website, so it's going to be pretty easy. You go on the wecookmeals.ca, and in a few minutes you can get your first order in. And like I said, the concept is pretty simple. We get a new menu each and every week. It's already in 2 minutes. You can personalize your meal. It costs, between, depending on the meals, between $10 and $14 on average, depending on the meal. There's a full portion. We're known for a very big portion, so even if you're like, I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, and I'm good with one meal. So no entree, no dessert, just the meal. I'm very good to go. So this big portion, and it's gonna get delivered to your home, and it's easy as that. So wecookmeals.ca. And if anyone want to reach out to me, I think the best way is on LinkedIn. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm gonna be happy. I'm sure maybe a few people listening that we can, there's good business that could be done together. So reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we hit up.
Yep. As a first generation Greek immigrant, I was going to say it's like big portions. I like that. So definitely got to sign up. Etienne, I just want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate your time today.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and anytime.